All right, we are live. Good. So the platform I got this file or this folder from is called Frontend Mentor. I think I've shared it with you guys before. And one thing I love about that website is the fact that they give you starter files, right? So I mean, once you keep on doing the challenges, you understand the folder structure and the kind of files you're supposed to create for a typical um, project. And for them, they give you the designs. So ideally, this is what we'll be building for the desktop. They give you both for desktop and for mobile. And because you are building in Bootstrap, we'll also try and achieve this as well for mobile. So in the mobile design, it looks this way. Hope you cannot see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so for mobile, move this way. And because we're building in Bootstrap, we don't have to bother ourselves about how we're going to code in mobile. Bootstrap will already handle that based on the structure and the kind of classes we call, right? And for desktop, it's going to look this way. Again, powered by Bootstrap. Mobile, desktop. And also they give you, um, also they give you the images that you need for the project. So you don't have to think about where I'm going to get the images from, whether from Unsplash or from wherever. So they make the challenges for you as seamless as possible. And because they want you to also, I mean, I know I said we don't have to achieve pixel perfection, but then for them, they also want to let you achieve pixel perfection as much as possible. But then again, the goal is understanding the foundations. They give you all the assets. We call them assets typically in coding. So either images or assets. And then they give you the index of HTML file. They even give you a README. Now this README is like documentation, just like how I mentioned Bootstrap has its own documentation. These guys also give you a README file to show you what to do and what is required of you, right? And then, yeah, that's it. So ideally, once you guys download the file from the link I shared in Classroom, you have a folder like this. And all you do is you open the folder with VS Code and you can have everything in there. Once you have the folder in VS Code, or you open the folder in VS Code, excellent. You have these three folders, like I said. The index of HTML is already created, right? And they give you the text you'll be using for the actual project. Let me just correct this 1 second. All right. And then first things first, they give you two guides actually. They give you the README templates, right? And this README tells you the kind of something you're working on. It tells you more things you're supposed to do. And because it's version control, as in you're storing the code on the cloud, so you never you lose it. They give you instructions on how to go about that. But you're not on version control yet. We'll take that in another class. And also they give you so you can ignore this one and then ignore this one as well. But then this was important, the style guide. So they tell you what you're supposed to do. So if they didn't tell you the layout, the designs were created to the following widths. So for mobile, this is the width they have in mind. And for desktop, you're designed for these screens. So, and they even tell you the colors. So they show you the colors you're supposed to use, your primary color, your your primary colors, and then they have your neutral colors. And they even tell you the font size you're supposed to use, right? And they tell you, great, they tell you the font family. you're supposed to use. And I think through this exercise, I'll show you how to embed fonts inside your HTML code, right? Because you are tired of the Times New Roman. It's not a very nice font, if you agree with me. And I'll show you the weight of the fonts, as well as where you can get icons to be able to fit into your project. And obviously they advertise their pro version on how to pay them for all the work they are doing for you. So first things first, Bootstrap does not provide fonts out of the box. So I'll create a CSS file to be able to add that. So, and like I mentioned, Bootstrap does not allow that kind of flexibility. So we'll do that on our end if we have to. And then first things first, I'm going to link my CSS, my HTML. And now that is done, it's awesome. We'll go to, we'll open our browser. I'll open this one. Okay. And then we'll type Bootstrap 5. Sorry. Once you're in Bootstrap, we want the latest version. So go for the latest version, read documentation, and a quick start. Right. So again, it's telling you create a new index HTML file and then bring the boilerplate code. But thanks to Frontend Mentor, we already have the boilerplate code, right? Okay, great. Have the body here. Yes. The next thing is to link Bootstrap CSS's CSS file in your HTML. So I'll go there, copy the link which is below the title tag, copy that link, come back to my HTML, paste that link, and then paste a script file, come back to my HTML. Just below the body, we know that we're supposed to paste script files. Just before the closing tag of the body, I'm going to paste my script tag. And then I'll add popper for my popovers and my tooltips. So the first one, this very first one is what I'm going to add. I'll add that. And with that in mind, I've set up my project for adding Bootstrap components, right? But then let's structure our HTML with the design. So when I say the content, the HTML, I mean the content, right? I'm just going to put them in the content the way they appear. And first things first, this looks like an H1 because it's the first. So clipboard allows you to a history of everything you copy. So this is the H1. So in VS Code, right, there's a pretty cool way to wrap some text around the tag. So what you do is you highlight what you want to wrap around the tag. When I say wrap around the tag, for instance, I want to put this in an H1. And rather than me creating an H1, right, and copying and pasting, I could do that because this is shorter. But then I imagine there were more words. I can just select what I want and then hold Control, Shift, and P will bring up this menu, right? And then from there, I'll choose or
there is a feedback from Godwin.
Sorry.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is there a hand raised or a question?
A question,
All right.
please. Where the document you are working on, where did you get it from?
So it's in Classroom. I'll once you go to Classroom, it should be there. I applied it in Classroom a couple of weeks ago, or like last week, thereabout. But then I'll re-approve it again so that you can get it. Or you want to do a code along?
I was thinking that would be advisable.
Okay. Let me see. This is it. This one. So I mean, there have been lots of announcements. So once you scroll down, search for clipboard landing in the stream. You'll find it. I posted it on August 3rd. Have you seen it, Godwin?
Okay.
So once you click on a link, it will take you to this view, something like this, right?
Okay. I've seen it.
Yeah. Okay. And once you are there, you just in this view, right? You just click on the clipboard landing and click on download. We'll download the folder for you.
Hello, Mr. Bernard.
I hope.
Yes, it seems your screen is not moving. I can't see anything.
Oh, are you there? So I was taking you to the view of the Google Drive. So once you click on the link in Classroom, right, on this, it will take you to this view. And once you're in this view, you click on board landing page. Yeah, this guy. It will bring down the options and you click on download. It will download the folder for you. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Okay, so let's go back. Yes, here. So I'm just gonna structure the text into their respective elements, right? So for instance, this one says this one is an H1, so I'm going to do that, and I'll show you a pretty cool way to wrap elements, items around elements, right? And for instance, I want to wrap this around an H1, so I'll select it. Once I highlight it, I'll hold Control Shift and P, or Command Shift and P for MacBook users, and I'll search for Emmet, or I'll even search for wrap. When you search for wrap, look for Emmet wrap with abbreviation. When I click on that, I can just type the abbreviation I want. If it's an H1, I'll type H1. Automatically, it will wrap it around an H1 for me. And then I'll do that for the rest. The next one is a P tag. So I'm going to wrap this in a P tag. And the next one is two buttons, these guys. So I'm going to wrap the first one download for iOS in a button. And this as well in a button. Download for Mac also in a button. Okay. And now the next one says keep track. Okay, that's also a heading. So I'm going to wrap that in an H2. Because remember very well, we said in HTML, you can only declare an H1 once, but you can declare H2s up to H6 multiple times. So for this guy, I'm going to wrap him in an H2. and then the rest of it in a p tag. And then now these guys are wrapping in a H4. H4. I'm gonna wrap these guys in an H4. And the corresponding text in a P. Also, this is an H4. And the corresponding text in a P. This is an H4. We have moved. This is also like an H2, similar to this. H2. And this will be a P. H2. This will be a P, a paragraph. And of course, we have the H3s. Or H4s. Are they similar? Yes. We have the H4s and their corresponding Ps. And the P. You have an H2. So and these two will be buttons. Wait, is there a mistake here? Oh, all right. If you are not adding, okay. This is the P, and this is these are the button. Download for iOS. The button. Download for Mac is also a button. And then we have the footer. So I'm going to move this guy into the footer. I'll handle him later. Okay. All right. So before I even begin with styling, right, I just want to ensure that I have my structure right. And to do that, I've done the simple elements, H1s, those ones that are not very complex like the containers, like the divs, right? So just define where my texts, my H1s, my Ps, my buttons, my H2s, my H4s, and so on and so forth. Those are pretty basic. Now the next bit is the structure of your HTML, which is also very, very important. I think it's one of the most underrated things people don't really talk about, the structure of your HTML, because if the structure is wrong, your CSS is also going to be wrong, like garbage in, garbage out. So you have to focus on how it's structured. And by structure, I mean how the elements are displaying based on the design, right? So how to place them in containers, when to use containers, when not to use containers, right? And so on and so forth. And the reason why I use some containers. Sometimes I'm using a container because I need specific styling, like display flex. Like display flex only works on containers that are holding stuff. So I might place certain elements in containers. Sometimes I might place some in containers so that certain CSS properties might not affect those containers, to shield those containers from CSS properties that might affect everywhere, and so on and so forth. So, for instance, let's start from the top, right? So there's an image over here with a C. I'm supposed to add an IMG tag. I think, okay, Bootstrap might have an image tag. If not, no, I don't think so. So let me add that. Um,
Mhm.
we have the SRC, and thankfully, they've already given us the folder for our images, so we don't have to worry about that. And I'll just go and look for the logo for clipboard, and it's logo.svg. And then I'll just give it a defined width and height. I'm just going to use my computer to determine the width and the height. Just hack around it. So it's 125 by 127. So the height is 127 and the width is 125. Okay. And then now back to the structure. So I'll first of all consider this one container, in that it looks to me like it's one box and these three things are inside, right? Because of the spacing between them. Right. So I'm going to put all this in one container. So from the image to where the buttons, I'm going to put it in a special container called a div. And then now within this container, right, there's some spacing in between here and here. So it means that I'm also going to put this in a container on its own, because it has spacing affecting the top and the bottom. And that spacing affecting the top and the bottom is not the same as the space affecting this H1 and then the text in there. It looks as though the top spacing and the bottom spaces are equal. So then it informs me I'm supposed to put this in its own div, so that the top and the bottom will affect only this guy. So I'm going to also put the H1 and the P in their own div. Right. And as for our buttons, they're side by side. And we learned that in order to make things look side by side, you need to place them in a container as well. So I'm going to place these two buttons in a div, right? Just to put them side by side. So I'm going to put these two in a div as well, so that I can apply display flex and make them side by side. Yeah. So it's coming together. Then let's do this guy as well. Also in its own div. So when I see two items that are closely related, like they go together, I'll put them in a div, like a heading and a paragraph. I'll put them in a div. They look like they are very well coordinated. The heading and a paragraph, they're together. So I'll put them in a div. So I'm going to put these two in their own div. Then every heading and paragraph I see, I'm also going to put in a div. And also, sorry, first of all, I'm also going to see this section looks like it's also in a div because there are two things. The image that you're seeing over here, this image, and this text, right? They're also two different containers because they're aligned side by side. So first things first, I'm going to embed the image. So before even this quick search, I'm going to first put all these in a container because they have to be side by side. And remember that enough for things to be side by side, the trick is to place them in a container and apply display flex. So with that in mind, I'm going to highlight all those edge force in that category. I think ends here, right? And then put them in a div. And inside them, so that's what I've done. Right? But however, the image is missing. This image is missing. So I'm going to create the image tag and call that image inside. I'm going to create the image tag, call that image called images, and let me be sure of the images that I'm looking at. So again, the beauty of it is for the SVG files, they come as code, so you can't see the actual image, but then for the PNG, you can actually see them. So they give me the header for the desktop, and the header is this background that's seen behind it. We'll embed that as well. And then you give me the header for the mobile, you're supposed to go about it. And yes, this is what I'm looking for. So it's called image computer.png. So I'll go back to my code and I'll do image computer.png, right? And now that is done, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to put all these in their own container and put the image in its own container as well. So I'm going to put this image in its container. And put all these guys on the side as well in their own container. So that they can be side by side because I applied display flex in their parent container, which was the big one we created the first time, this guy. So I'm gonna put all of them in a container. And voila. So over here you can see that we have the big container, which is covering this box over here I've mapped out, which is covering the image and these texts. And we have smaller containers, which is covering the image itself and this guy. Good. So when that is done, move on to the next one. Remember, I said anywhere you see a heading and an image and a paragraph, you put it in a div. So I'm going to put this in a div. Then another image is there. So since it's inside here, what I'm going to do is going to create an image tag that will hold this image with the computer, with the iPad, and it's called IMG devices. Let's be extra sure. Excellent. And then from there, we have this again. So heading and corresponding paragraph, we're going to put that in a div, right? And these guys will also go. So again, these guys are side by side. And you know the trick, if they're side by side, you have to put them in a div because you want to apply display flex. So I'm going to select all those items that are going to go in, put them in a div because they're side by side and I need to put them in display flex. And secondly, when we look at them individually, this is also one box or one container. This is another container. And last, this is also another container. So we have 3 containers in the main container. So I'm going to select them. The first one, where am I? Where am I? Create blacklist. Excellent. So I'm going to create a div for each of the 3. And this as well. Okay. And finally, we have these images, which are also going to be in their div because we are flex side by side. But before that, I forgot to include images for each of them. So I'm going to go ahead and include the images. Remember, they appear before their headings. So inside each div that contains these guys, I'm going to include the image on top of it. So for the first one, I'm going to create the image. It's called, what's it called? I think it's called Blacklists. This guy. And I'm going to create another image. Just going to copy and replicate. It's called tests, I think. Yes. The last one is called preview. Is that it? Yes, excellent. Yes. And then, like I said, we have these 3 images, right? Maybe their partners will also support them. And again, they're side by side. When we know they're side by side, it means that they're in a parent container or a special type of container that has display flex on it. And to do that, I'm going to go back to the code, right? Where does this end? Okay, let me just collapse this. Supercharge your workflow. This is it. And this guy ends here. Excellent. Okay. So then that means I can create that div. And inside there, I'm going to create images. Now, the shortcut in VS Code to create multiple image tags is to do a simple multiplication. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images. So I'm going to do IMG times 5. I'm going to spit out 5 image tags for me. Now, when this is done, I just all the images. So the first one is Google. Second one is IBM. The one is Microsoft. Fourth one is Hewlett Packard. The last one is Vector Graphics. Excellent. Sorry, finally, interesting. So you see, I made a mistake. This is supposed to be the fourth one. It's supposed to be an H4. And its corresponding P. I'm gonna move this out. Going to move these out. And then I cut something. Yes. And over here, I'm going to create final div, paste them in there. Take this icon or image and place it here. These will remain the final one. So yes, we have the H2 and its corresponding paragraph. Then a div. Also part of this. There's no need for this as well. Then obviously there are buttons that are side by side. So I'm gonna put this in a div. Great. So I've ensured that everything in my HTML is well structured in terms of using the elements like H1, H2, as well as placing the divs based on what I anticipate the design is going to require. Right. And before I move on to, so with this, the benefit of this is now when you start styling, it makes it easier because you know where you're applying the styles. But before I continue with styling, any questions up to this point? Or we were sleeping? Are we here?
We are here. Everything was just moving fast.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just watching a movie.
Really?
I have to just be watching him. I couldn't even code that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So ideally, I was just looking at the structure, right? So everywhere I saw a heading and a paragraph, I placed them in a div to sort of protect them because I knew what was going to happen, right? And most of these things are repeat, rinse and repeat, because it's either we are going to apply display flex because they are horizontal, And you know if you're applying display flex, you need to place them in a div. And basically, yes, I haven't even done the styling. It's just my structure for me. So everywhere I saw something that was similar, I would put them together in one container. I don't know if you guys got that, or that one was also too fast.
That one, we got that one also. But that one, I had a question on it. Another the question I wanted to ask was, I noticed that some of them were using the spaces between them to determine the container that I mean the category of container that they need to be in, or the group of container that they need to be in, right?
Yeah.
And there's one too that I saw that was a bit confused though. The one that's the one with the image of the computer,
This one.
the image of the computer. I
Can you
can't
see
see.
my screen?
I've just seen your code. Yeah, that one. You see that one and the one on the right side.
Yes.
I noticed I also put them in a container, and I was a bit confused though, because I thought they were standing at different places and all that.
Stand at different places. Okay. So this is my thought process, right? I am seeing two things side by side. I'm not just seeing one thing. I'm seeing two things. I'm seeing an image, right? And I'm seeing a group of text. Can you see that? And they
Yeah.
are side by side. And I know that from previous lessons, if things are supposed to be side by side, then it means that they are in a bigger container that is holding those two items or three items, or in our case, these two items. And to make them side by side, you need to apply display flex. So that's my thought process. So I see two items, an image, and a bunch of text, which are side by side. And I'm wondering, how are they side by side? How are they side by side? They're side by side because from CSS we've learned that if things are side by side, then there's display flex. So that was my thought process. But then I want to get, you said something at the end that intrigued me. You said they were together. Is that what you said?
Now, so I was saying that they
Mhm.
look like two separate items, and yeah, you know, because I was still going with the mindset of first you are using the spaces to define the container that they are supposed to be inside,
Mm.
and now another approach you're using they being placed side by side each other,
Yes.
also to
Yeah.
determine another fencing container. That's
Yeah.
so it means that in this case, if that's the logic, it means that in this particular instance, you're going to have two containers, one that covers the computer and the words there, and another one that covers only the iCloud and the complete history that covers
Yes.
that.
So we'll have, so even inside this, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
You can see the border around the text over
Yeah,
here. So even in this,
yeah.
right, there's even still another div that's for these guys. Can you see?
Okay.
That's because again, within this container, this container is a bit complex because it has a lot of divs in them. It has, first of all, like you mentioned earlier, it has the image container. Then it has the container for these guys, right? And even when you go within the container for these guys, remember I mentioned earlier that anywhere you see a heading and a paragraph, put them in on a container because they go together. So that is why I'm placing this in the container. And that's because of the spacing in between them. Do you get that?
Yeah.
Yes, similar to space. The reason why I place these guys in a container is because of the spacing in between them. Do you get that?
So I was thinking, okay, I get that, but so I was thinking with that one, okay, maybe this was my mind also was thinking though. With that one, if you can go down, with that one, so having yes, so being able to figure out the two containers. That is the bigger one. That's the one with the computer and the web side. I mean, side the search, the iCloud and the complete. That web by that's one container. Then the second container will be the quick search, iCloud, and the complete history. That's one container. But I was rather thinking that when it comes to the individual items like the quick search and the explanation behind beneath it, it will be more like maybe an H2 and probably an H5 or an H6 kind of activity being played here and all that. Because one is bigger and one is a bit smaller in terms of the font. Then after that, we are boarding the bigger fonts and all. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Like that's what I actually have thought.
Oh, so we're going to use CSS to. Of course, you're going to go to the CSS and do the bold and all that, right?
Yeah.
But yes, but for me, it was just trying to differentiate the different containers that we have. I don't know if, because from what you spoke about, I mean, I hear you, but I was hearing more on the designing aspect because I heard you saying you use font, what do you call it, bold them, which is more on the CSS side. If I'm right.
So that's what I was saying. Yes, instead of just saying creating separate containers for each three different, in addition to the containers you've already created for these three items. Yes. So I was thinking one would be like probably a much bigger header and a much smaller, so a much bigger heading and a much smaller heading. Then maybe you can just bold in the bigger heading just to give it that design like as a look.
Oh, so these two will be headings. Is that what you're saying? This one and this one.
Yes, exactly. Then you go and bold in the quick search. Then either you look for a nice font for the down one. They continue.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, that's right. That's very valid or an approach to do it. But then again, when you come back and think about it, for accessibility, right? These guys are headings because of from the design they are bold, yes. But these guys should always be paragraphs because they give more information about the heading. So if when the two headings are pulled, so maybe this is a bigger heading and this is probably a smaller heading, but they're all headings. When a screen reader is reading through it, right, it will not know the difference. It will not let them know that this is actually giving more information to this. To read it as though this is also a separate heading, which might make those using a screen reader confused. That's why we have to structure it heading paragraph.
Yeah, so that also work. Heading and paragraph also work.
Yes.
Then you change the font for it.
Yes. All right. Okay. Any other, Jessica?
The last question. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, ask all the questions. Ask all of it.
So if you can go back to the website.
Okay.
So go on. So I know we mostly, I mean, in trying to learn the whole coding and the design bit of, I mean, the whole coding and the design part of it. I know you mostly say that something to make the reader feel bored about it. I want to understand. Is it the display or the styling at the end of the day that will really make it look boring, because I know that, yes, I mean, now I'm kind of understanding, we are trying to do, we are learning and understanding, but I know that if it's about the size or the font of the text that I'm trying to write, if it's about the font or the text that I want to write, either a lower, a higher heading or a paragraph can give me that. Am I right?
Yes.
So why if I decide to use a bigger a smaller, I mean an H1 for example, and probably an H6, to display a particular like that text in the first, like in the quick search, for example, and the explanation beneath it. It rather make it kind of creates some boring experience on the web page. I know sometimes you pass that. I mean, you give that instruction and that caveat anytime you're teaching us. But I want to understand, how does it play? I mean, really, they understand. I don't want to get what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah, no, I understand you. So it's not really about boring, right? So it's about, so there are screen readers. So blind people also will check out your website. And what happens is they use screen readers that read what the content on your website to them. So for instance, if you had used, let's say we had used an H2, right? And a paragraph. The screen reader, and obviously you've done the design, the structure very well. The screen reader will read what's on the HTML based on how you structure your HTML. So it will say that, oh, we are on a section, right, that has is currently displaying two things: a laptop and more information about the laptop, right? And now that it's ready that way, now the reader, the blind person understands where they are on the website. And on the screen reader would say, or even on the laptop section where we are on, which the more information regarding the laptop is number one, maybe these are like features or benefits. So it says the benefits of this clipboard website are quick search. So it's quick search, then it will read easily search snippets by content, category, web address, application, and more, but just read what's from the content. However, if you had used another heading, when it gets here, it will probably read quick search, iCloud sync, complete history, and come and read easily search your snippets by content, web address, application, and more, as though it was another heading on its own, another content. You understand? But if it was bundled up together by heading and paragraph, when the screen reader is reading, it knows that the heading and paragraphs go together. So the heading is there, and the paragraph is telling more about the heading. But if it's two separate headings, even if it's an H6, it's still a heading. But it will read all the headings that go together, H2s, and then go and read the H6 headings as though there were separate content in that particular section. Do you get that? So it's just to help the blind person follow what is on what is on your website by the way you've written them. Or did you get that? Hello, Godwin. Okay. Can anyone else? Jessica, can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
loud and
okay.
clear.
Okay, all right. All right.
Hello, Mr. Bernard.
I hope.
Yes, please. So concerning this, let's say if you is it only the example that is available on a clipboard, or there are several examples that you can go by?
Several examples in terms of what?
It's in terms of the clipboard landing page that we are building.
Oh, are there other projects you can build apart from this? Oh, yes, there are more. I'll be sending more your way.
Okay, all right.
Yes, for you to build, right?
Okay.
Okay, all right. So now that we have our structure in place, we can now start um, designing it, right? And so first things first, remember we placed this part in the div because they go together. And
Your screen is stuck on one.
okay, can you see
Yeah.
now? All
Yes.
right. So I was gonna begin the styling with the styling of the website. But first of all, let me open this in Live Server. Okay, we have everything we need. Yes, we do. Right. So first things first, these I put them in a div because again we identify the spacing, and even the way they are centered in the middle within this container, it makes it easier for me to even position them in the middle or center them, right? And if I go to Bootstrap, I can search for text alignment.
So, Bernard, my internet is messing up. So
Hi,
I
Gordon,
didn't
are
hear,
you
but I
back?
think I'll check the recordings. So,
Oh,
yeah.
all right.
But I think I'll check the recordings. We can go ahead. My internet is messing up. I don't know why.
Okay. All right. My apologies on that. So we have text center to center the items. So I'm just going to use that. Now, CSS has what do you call it? HTML says have a trick, have a nice trick. Sometimes when you apply text center or text align center, this text center is what center align text on all viewports. So it's for text. But sometimes when items are in a div, right, it tends to center them as though they were texts. And I want to try that and see if it works over here. So you can see over here, although text center or text align in CSS would have been text align center. So let's say if I had my p tag and I want to center it, would have been a text align and the value be center. The same is for the Bootstrap class called text center. And like I said, center align text on all viewports. But ideally, it's for text elements. So like your piece and your H1 and so on and so forth. However, I mentioned that sometimes when elements are within a div and you want to center the items in there, text align center, which is primarily for text elements, will center a container as though it was a text. So I just took that class name, applied it on my div that's holding those elements we had already structured earlier on. And the outcome is, you see, it centered it beautifully. Right. And now the next part is the buttons. So I'm going to try and ensure that I have these buttons in place. So I have the download for iOS button. I'm just going to go to my Bootstrap. Search for button. And I'm just going to use these two, this info and the primary. So I'm going to call it, just going to copy the class name. And this as well. And we look at our browser, it's forming gradually. And the next part is to change the text color to white. And in the same way, if I go to Bootstrap again, I can click on colors or colors, search for color, and shows me all the colors that apply on text. So you have text light, that gives me the white color. So I'm just going to copy this. And I'll use text lights. Because I saw that was the only one that's exactly, and it gives me the white color. And now, based on our design, the buttons are also very rounded. So I'm going to go back to Bootstrap and search for, and also what is causing the roundedness of the button is border radius. So I'm just going to search for border radius or border. And yes, I have radius here. Good. And it shows me the classes that are causing border radius in Bootstrap. So you can see over here I have pale, which is similar to what we want for a button. So I'm going to copy the class name called rounded pale. And therefore, each of them, I'll put the rounded pale around it. And we are getting there. And now from there, again, you know, we put everywhere we saw a heading and a paragraph, we put spacing, we put it in a div. Before I even come to that, let's focus on the spacing in between. Remember, we mentioned that this is also a heading and a paragraph, so we put it in a div to control the spacing above and below, right? And from the last time's class, we learned about using margins and paddings in Bootstrap. I'm going to go back there again, right? And we said M is for margin, P is for padding, and we have the variant T for top, bottom, and so on and so forth. Now we have one that controls both top and bottom and left and right paddings. So we have x-axis. We know the x-axis is from left to right. So if you look at your number plane, and we have the y-axis like a graph, right? We have from top to bottom. So if I type my, m for margin and y for top and bottom, it means I want to apply margins on both the top and the bottom, which is similar to what we have in our design. In this div for the heading and the paragraph, we have some space at the top and space at the bottom, which are equal. So I'm going to go to my Bootstrap, right? And I know that for margins and paddings, we have 5, 6, 7 variants, 0 to 5, and then we have the auto. And we explain what the auto does. But then for today, I'm just going to use my4. My meaning margin and y on the y-axis meaning top and bottom, and a unit of 4. So for that, I'm going to target this div that has the heading and the paragraph, and do M for margin, Y for the y-axis top and bottom, and then the unit by Bootstrap, I'm just going to use 4. And yes, that should put a spacing in between. If I increase it to 5, I want you guys to notice it. Yes. If I increase it to 5, nice, increases it. Now the next part is this guy as well. Going to center it, and the same trick. Let's copy that class, and it's this guy. Because it has a, remember everywhere we saw a heading and a paragraph, we placed it in a div. Text center, he puts in the middle, right? And good. So for the two guys, let me see. Great. And then the spacing between this guy and the two buttons here. I'm going to use MT for margin top and give it the highest variant of 5. All right. So in this case, it might not be enough. So you might want to give it your own class, right? or let's say I'm going to call it margin override. And in my CSS, I'm going to call margin override and give it margin top, let's say 50 pixels. Okay. 100. Okay, excellent. And then for this guy and these guys, remember in our structure, we anticipated that they will be side by side. So we place each of them in a bigger container. We place each of them in a bigger container, and then we placed each of them in their own containers. So we'll go to that section, right, which is here, from line 60 to line 79. And we know the first container for the image is this guy, and the second one is for this guy, right? And we said when they are side by side, we need a display flex. So we'll go to Bootstrap and see how their grid system works or their flex system works. So if I type good, even just from here, I can see flex. And to apply display flex in Bootstrap, it's D flex. D standing for display. So you can see over here, D flex. And it gives you all the other variants. So D flex, copy that. Paste that here. And then we'll see the outcome. See that by the simple one line of the deflex class, it's aligned them side by side, right? And you can easily check for the height and width of the image. So I'm just going to use (720 by 574). I should reduce it a bit. I reduce it a bit. Okay. All right. And then the next bit is to add the gap in between this gap, right? And to do that, we know that to add a gap in Bootstrap, you call the name gap and then the units again from 0 to auto. So 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 5 up to auto. And that also works on display flex. So I'm going to do gap of, let's say, 4 units. And that places, let me increase it to 5. Oh, I forgot I'm zoomed in there. Okay, it's perfect sense. Okay. And now the spacing in between this container that contains the laptop and the information about the monitor, sorry, the space on top, I'm gonna add a margin. And I'm gonna call it empty, give it the highest 5 by Bootstrap. Maybe I should, okay, I'm just gonna give margin override to it. Yes, and that makes it uniform. Okay. And the next bit is it's this heading as well as this paragraph. You're gonna also center it and give it the margin on top. So that heading and the paragraph is here with this div. So you see the different divs. So this guy, I'm going to give it a class. First of all, I'm going to increase the margin on top from here to the laptop, or the computer where it ends. And I'll give you a class called margin override because that's what gives us the very large margins. And then from there, I'll center text center from Bootstrap classes to center it. And there we have it. And then from there, we have this guy again. And again, the space on top. So you see, because we're able to structure our HTML, it's simpler to manipulate the classes and get the preferred outcome. So I know that this guy is in this div. So I'm just going to give it text center and margin override. Text center to center it and margin override to increase the margin on top of it. Like that. Right. And now the next part is these guys. The features and we know again from our structure, right? We anticipated that since they are side by side, they should be in a bigger div, right? And each of them would also be in their own divs, which we clearly defined. And so first of all, we know they're in a bigger div, and to make them side by side, just target the bigger div to ensure that they're side by side. And it's display flex that makes them side by side. And we've learned from Bootstrap that the class for display flex is dflex. So I'm just going to copy that class and paste it here. And now this is our outcome. Right? And now I'll just increase the spacing on top here. And for that, I'll do MT5 for margin top 5 units and increase the spacing. And now I'll do same for these guys. Right. Looks like they're already aligned side by side. The images. And I need to first ensure that in the middle, right? And we've learned from today that when items are within a div and you apply text align center or text center class from Bootstrap, it will move them in the middle. So let's try that and see the images will go to the middle. So these are the images, and this is the div that's holding the images. We'll call the class, and then we'll call text center. And just like that, they're in the middle, right? Now we need to ensure that there's spacing in between the images or the brands, just like in our design. To do that, we know that we need gap. So you could have easily applied the gap, maybe your go-to. But gap doesn't work without display flex. So it means that I need to somehow apply display flex for the gap to work in between them. Okay. Now this resets it for me. And I know why.
Hello, Mr. Bernard.
I hope.
And please, I want to ask a question. Instead of
Alright.
instead of using the gap
Mhm.
element, why don't we use justify content?
Justify content
Yes, then you use space between all.
for the images here.
Yes, please.
Okay. But that has to work with display flex.
Okay.
Even justify content. The last time we mentioned that it will not work without display flex. Or you're saying we should use display flex and use justify content space between. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was just thinking when you apply the gap, I was thinking why don't we use the justify content? I just wanted to know the reason behind it.
Right. Yeah. So gap and justify content space between, they are both for applying spaces, right? And
Alright.
they go with display flex. So it means that if there's no display flex on the container that you want the items within it side by side, it will never work. Do you get that?
Okay. All right.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Welcome. All right. So now there's spacing in between these guys. So when I use display flex, because I wanted to apply a gap, it shifted the items to the start, even though it was text align center. And that's because when you apply display flex, now the items are actually ready to be side by side. However, the initial starting point will be on the left-hand side. That's the initial point of display flex. It will be on the left-hand side. So it will override this text center. It means that this might not work anymore. So it's redundant to leave it there. And then now we'll apply a gap of 5, which will create the spacing in between them. But however, they are still at the initial point. Now, to bring them to the middle, we'll say justify. Let me see the class for Bootstrap for justify center, justify content. Justify content. Just scroll down. Yes, justify content. So you justify content start, justify content end, justify content center, justify content space between, space around evenly. But we want justify content center. So we'll justify content center. Sorry. And now you're back in the middle. However, the images look a bit stretched, right? And that's because they are filling the container or the box that is around, or the data is holding these images. And to bring them back to their original size, you need to apply align item center. And what happens is it will align the images brightly in the center of the container they are within, so they don't stretch to fill the entire container. So currently what's happening is if I put a border around this div, you see exactly what I'm talking about. So you can see that the images are stretching so that they touch the entire height of the container. So they feel stretched. That's because of display flex. So they are stretching so that they can fill the entire height of the container. However, to adjust it so that it doesn't stretch to touch the entire height of the container, you need to apply align item center. So they are aligned within the middle. That way they are back to their original size. And to do that, you need to search for, oh, it's even here. Align items. Yes, excellent. So we call it align item center. So you don't stretch to fill the container. So we have align item center. And you can see they don't feel stretched anymore. So now I can take away the border. And then also the spacing in between. I'll do margin override. So yes, so include spacing on top. And then I'll go back to this guy, which is also a heading and a paragraph. Remember, we placed them in a div. I'm going to go back here. This is its heading and paragraph in a div. I'm going to first of all do the text center just to bring them in the middle, and then apply the margin override to apply the margin on top. And then now from there, I'll edit my buttons, these two buttons. And because they are similar to what is, or they're similar to what is on top, I'm just going to go to my code, grab what I did for my buttons on top, which is here. And then replace with this. Okay, and in that same sense, I'm going to give this class text center just to put the buttons in the middle, right? And yes, now we can, because I've zoomed in, that is why it looks stretched. But ideally, this design should suffice. Here, okay. Okay, 100%. Okay, great. Now the next bit of things is you need to apply the background image. And to do that, I see Bootstrap has background. Background. On this progress. We don't have one for background images. Okay. So for the background image, as per our requirements, right, we've already given us a design for the background image. And to do that, I know it is affecting probably this side, this section, right? And it's that background image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that section here, give it a class name, or let's say BG image, standing for background image. Right, and I'll copy that, go to my CSS, create a style for that class by calling the background image, URL, say images, desktop. And that way it shows nicely as the background image. And the next thing is to increase the height, the margin on top here. Because we already have a margin like that, I'm just gonna say margin override. Sorry, I didn't call that on the right place. Or did I? Yes. Okay, so that won't work because the background image is together with that section. So if you place a margin on top of it, right, it's going to add space on top of this section that already has the background image. And the implication of that is, like we saw the white space on top, which is not what we want. We actually want the spacing to be within that section. And spacing that is inside a particular section is signified by a padding. So I'm going to say PT5. I could easily use another style called padding top override. That's how I should have called the first one, margin top override. I'll copy that, create a style for that class and call it, yes, padding top 100 pixels. And that should resolve my problem. However, the background is also repeating. And to do that, there's an attribute called background repeat. When I say it's repeating, you can see that there's one image and looks like another image that is also coming up around where the buttons are. And we don't want that. So we will say background repeat and the value is no repeat. What will happen is it will take away the second image or any other additional images that might arise. Okay. But ideally, the purpose of this was to let you know how quickly it is to apply the Bootstrap classes to your HTML once you structure the HTML very well. So you see how much time we spent structuring our HTML, knowing where the div should be, anticipating where containers would be based on if there was going to be a flex on them or based on if there was spacing between them, between certain items. And spending time on your HTML structure informs how quickly or easily your CSS is going to be. I'm going to pause here. And then on Saturday when we meet, we'll continue with adding the font and the other bits of styling as well. I'll Is everyone still here? Oh, okay, nice. So I will open the floor for questions at this point. Any questions? Jessica, Hope, Simon.
No questions.
Okay. Hope.
Please, I think I'm okay for now.
Okay, all right. Okay then. All right. So I'm stopping the recording now, and I'll make the recording available